Imagine waking up one day and realizing that every single thing you were told about love, every movie, every song, every piece of advice your mother gave you at the kitchen table was missing something. Not wrong exactly, just incomplete, like being handed a map with half the roads missing and being told, go find your way. That feeling, that quiet, gnawing sense that something essential has been left out of the conversation, is exactly what millions of people are carrying right now, silently, every single day. And if you've ever felt it too, I want you to stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you changed the way I see everything. Before we go any further, if this is the kind of conversation you've been waiting for, real, deep, the kind that actually makes you think, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel exists for people who refuse to settle for surface-level answers, people who want to understand themselves and the world at a deeper level. We put out content like this every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Now let's go somewhere real. There was a man, let's call him David. David was 31 years old, living in a decent apartment in Chicago, working a job he didn't hate but didn't love, spending his weekends scrolling through apps, swiping left, swiping right, going on first dates that felt like job interviews, going home alone, and convincing himself that next time would be different. He had the list. You know the list, the mental checklist of everything he needed in a partner. The height, the ambition, the sense of humor, the shared interests, the matching energy, the values, the goals, the right kind of Saturday morning. He had refined this list over years. He was proud of it even. It made him feel like he knew what he wanted, like he was being intentional, like he was doing it right. But here's what David didn't realize. He was so committed to his list that he had stopped being committed to the person sitting across from him. He was so busy measuring whether she fit the template that he forgot to wonder who she actually was. He forgot to be curious. He forgot to be present. He was in the room, but he wasn't really there. And that's a kind of loneliness that no dating app was designed to solve, because it lives entirely on the inside. David's story isn't unusual. It's epidemic. And the reason it's epidemic has less to do with love and more to do with something we rarely talk about: the slow, quiet erosion of the basic human skills that make connection possible in the first place. Think about how you spent your childhood. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s or even the early 2000s, you probably remember playing outside, real outside, running up to kids you'd never met before and asking if they wanted to play, making rules, breaking rules, having fights that were resolved by sunset because you'd be back on the same street again tomorrow. You were learning something profound without knowing it. You were learning how to navigate another human being. You were learning that friction was not the enemy of connection. It was the forge that made it real. That training ground is gone now. And in its place, we have a world that has been engineered, almost surgically, to remove every form of friction from daily life. You don't need to leave your house to eat, to work, to shop, to exercise, to be entertained, to feel seen. You can have it all delivered. You can have it all streamed. You can have it all without ever making eye contact with a single living soul. And we wonder why connection feels so impossibly hard. We wonder why dates feel exhausting. We wonder why people are lonelier than ever in the most connected era in human history. Here's the thing about friction that nobody tells you. It is not an obstacle to desire. It is the engine of it. Every great love story ever told, from the novels that made you stay up until 3 in the morning, to the movies that made you cry in a theater surrounded by strangers, every single one of them is built on an obstacle. Two people who almost didn't meet. Two people whose worlds weren't supposed to collide. Two people who had every reason to walk away and chose instead to stay. Attraction plus obstacle equals something that actually feels like something. That tension, that unknown, that leap of faith. That is where love lives. Not in the perfectly curated profile, not in the seamless, frictionless, algorithmically optimized match, in the mess, in the mystery, in the risk. David eventually stopped using the apps for 3 months. He didn't do it on purpose at first. Life just got in the way. And somewhere in those 3 months, something shifted. He started noticing people again. Not as potential matches or potential rejections, but just as people. He struck up a conversation with a woman at a coffee shop, not because he was trying to impress her, not because he'd rehearsed an opening line, but because she was reading a book he'd always meant to read, and he was genuinely curious about it. They talked for 40 minutes. He didn't ask for her number. She didn't ask for his. But when he walked out of that coffee shop, he felt more alive than he had in years. Not because something romantic had happened, but because something real had happened. A genuine exchange between two human beings who were actually present with each other. That moment didn't lead to a relationship, but it led to something more important. It led David back to himself. It reminded him what connection actually felt like when it wasn't being filtered through a screen or a checklist or a carefully crafted persona designed to minimize the risk of rejection. It reminded him that you cannot find something real by manufacturing the conditions that eliminate all possibility of surprise. Trust, too, is something we have complicated almost beyond recognition. We live in an era where we will hand our home address to a stranger with a 1-star rating on a rideshare app, but we struggle to let someone in emotionally after 6 months of dating. We will give a corporation access to our location, our search history, our most private conversations, our faces, our voices, and then turn around and wonder how we're supposed to trust another person. Trust was never meant to be a wall you breach all at once. It was always meant to be built in small, quiet moments. The times someone showed up when they said they would. The times they remembered something you mentioned in passing. The times they put your interests before their own when you weren't in the room. These are the building blocks of trust. Small, unglamorous, consistent acts of showing up, and they cannot be shortcut. They can only be earned slowly, with time and attention and care. There is something else I want to say about love, about desire, about the thing that keeps connection alive, not just in the beginning when everything is electric and new, but years in, decades in, when the newness has faded and what's left is the choice, the daily, ongoing, active choice to keep tending to something. Desire doesn't just happen to you. It is not a volcano that erupts spontaneously while you're folding laundry or answering emails. It is something you create, something you preserve, something you infuse with intention and ritual and playfulness and meaning. The couples who stay deeply connected over the long arc of a life are not the ones who got lucky. They are the ones who kept choosing each other, kept being curious about each other, kept creating space for the unexpected within the familiar. And here's what nobody tells you about love until it's almost too late. The fear is part of it. The vulnerability is not a bug. It is the feature. There is no love without the fear of losing it. The more fully you love something or someone, the more clearly you understand that you could lose them, and that understanding is not a weakness. It is the measure of how completely you have allowed yourself to be in it, to lead with your whole heart, to stop holding back the parts of yourself that feel too much, want too much, need too much. Because neediness has been pathologized in our culture to such a degree that we have started to treat basic human longing as something embarrassing, something to be managed and minimized and never ever shown in public. But wanting someone, actually genuinely, deeply wanting to share your life with another person, is not cringe. It is one of the most human things you can do. It is beautiful. And if you've been told otherwise, let this be the moment you start to unlearn that. David eventually found someone, not through an app, not through a list. He found her in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday afternoon at a bookstore, arguing gently with a stranger about whether a particular author's best work was their first or their last. He didn't know it then. She didn't know it then. But the conversation that started that afternoon didn't stop. And what made it work, what made it last, wasn't compatibility in the algorithmic sense. It was curiosity. It was the decision made again and again to keep asking questions, to keep being surprised, to keep choosing the other person not because they were perfect, but because the life they were building together was meaningful and real and full of the kind of friction that makes you grow. So here is what I want to leave you with. The world is not going to slow down. The screens are not going away. The algorithms are not going to stop telling you what to want and who to be and how to feel. But you have a choice every single day that no algorithm can make for you. The choice to look up, the choice to be present, the choice to walk toward the friction instead of away from it, the choice to let yourself want something, really want it, without apologizing for the wanting, the choice to lead not with your wounds, but with your scars, because your scars are the proof that you have loved, that you have lived, that you have been brave enough to feel something real. Start there. Start today. Not tomorrow, not when things are less complicated, not when you feel more ready. Now. Because the life you are meant to be living is not waiting for you on the other side of perfect conditions. It is waiting for you on the other side of the next courageous, imperfect, fully human step you take toward it. And I believe, with everything I've got, that you are ready to take it.